Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm on my way to the car wash right now just to get the Mini washed up a little bit. It's a bit dirty from the last track day. Probably could be a little pointless for me though, since I'm probably going to go back to the track this Tuesday again actually and get a couple more runs in. Hopefully the track's going to stick a little better this time. The weather's supposed to be like 58 degrees during the day, so I'm really hoping that that little extra heat that we had from last Tuesday will help the track be a little better. So while we're driving along, I think I just wanted to discuss today a little bit about myself and why I'm choosing to do this. Honestly, the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to prove to myself that I am capable of doing anything that I put my mind to. I've learned that in the past with other things, but lately I feel like I'm not challenging myself, and it gets a little old and mundane challenging yourself to anything and everything when it has to do with your job. So I want to do something a little outside of that spectrum, a little different. So that's why I decided to start a YouTube channel. I'm not expecting to blow up big or anything like that. I'm honestly just doing this for me. Also to put out information about the R55 or Mini Cooper S's in general of this generation from 2007 to 2014 for my particular car. This is a 2014 Mini Clubman S. If you guys don't know, I basically have every bolt-on on the car right now, including a tune. So I've got a CTS turbo intake. We have a catless downpipe. We have a custom catback exhaust and an eBay Racing intercooler. It's actually a forged copy. I've done some data logging, and honestly this intercooler has beyond taken its weight and its value. I mean, the thing was like 135 bucks. It was something I purchased almost immediately after I got the car, after seeing things about the stock intercooler. The stock intercooler is so tiny, it's ridiculous, it's embarrassing. I actually went to the track with this car back when I used to have the stock intercooler still, and I used to heat soak like crazy. It was ridiculous. So I ordered the intercooler, never got around to really putting it on, but after I got the tune was when I was like, all right, let me go ahead and put this thing in there. So that was one of the first things I ordered. At the same time, I also ordered the intercooler piping. There's like a muffler on the cold side, just to, I guess, keep spool noise down. I don't know why anybody would want that. So I got a delete pipe for that. I got the intercooler, and after all of that came to the door, I started looking around for the tuning. And that's when I went to Google and I figured out North American Motoring about this guy named Mario. His username on there, well, everybody knows him by his Mario Kart. I don't think his username is that. It's like, his username is M-Cubed, something I can't remember right now. So I hit Mario up via a private message on the forum, and then we started talking through email. Now, Mario is a Manic Tune dealer. I don't believe he works for them directly. So he walked me through the in and outs of the Manic Tune. When I first contacted him, I wanted to get the stage 1, and he recommended, you know, if you're going to spend the money, you might as well go stage 2. And I had told him at the time, I'm like, well, you know, right now I don't really have the money for the downpipe that's required. It required the intake as well, and also the intercooler. And I was like, well, you know, I got the intercooler, but, you know, I don't want anything to go wrong, so I wanted to be 100% in it. So after talking with him for a little while, he convinced me that going stage 2 and leaving the stock hardware, as long as I ran the lowest map, which is map A, I should be fine to get through the winter. Especially with the temps dropping, shouldn't be an issue. So I immediately shipped them off my ECU. Quick turnaround. It would have been overnight to him and then overnight back to me. I sent it to him on a Thursday. He got it Friday, and it would have been back to me on Saturday, but the delivery, the initial delivery to him was a little late, so it didn't get back to me until Monday. So after I got the ECU back, I plugged it in, took it out. I got the SPS switch with it, by the way. I can show that to you guys in another video. Basically, it lets you switch through those 3 different maps, including your stop map. So technically it's 4. So I plug the ECU in, I go to drive the car, I let the car warm up, and then I take it to like a little second gear roll and just hit it. And the first thing that caught me was the traction control that I completely forgot to turn off. And that traction control kicked in like crazy. So I was like, oh, okay, we're working with something here. So I turned off my traction control, went back out, little first gear roll, punched it. It lit up the tires all the way through first gear. I was super impressed with this tune. The first thing, actually I almost forgot, one of the first things I also bought when I got that stuff was the JB Plus module, which like plugs in between your MAF air sensor and the wire to read back to the ECU. And basically what that does is it tricks your ECU to push more boost so that you get more speed. Well, the thing I didn't like about the JB Plus was it was very inconsistent. So there'd be times where I'd hit the throttle and the car would take off real nice, and I'm like, oh yeah, that little extra power. I was hitting about 18 pounds of boost, and it was great. But then there'd be other times where I go to hit it, and it felt like a stock car. And I'm like, what is going on here? You know, this is so inconsistent. It's crazy. And that's when I started researching about the Manning tune. So I was very glad to get rid of that JB Plus, which, by the way, if you deal through Mario Kart, he will let you trade in your JB Plus as of right now that I know of. I'm not sure how long he'll be doing this for. I know he's done it for a while. You can trade that JB Plus in for a $200 credit towards your tune, which that helped me out a lot in making this decision, because at least I was getting some money back, because that JB Plus was $300. So I didn't want to be at a loss. And yes, I could have tried to ship it back to Burger Motorsports, but they're very finicky about their return policy. So like I said, I'm super impressed with Map A. And that is when the mod bug just hit me real hard. And as of right now, I actually still owe Mario a little bit of money. I'm waiting on my next paycheck to get that to him, actually. He sent me a catless downpipe. It was a used stainless steel catless downpipe with my order, just so that I could be reassured that running stage 2, I was going to get the full benefit of it, because the downpipe is like the biggest power adder that this car can get, other than the tune, and with the tune they both just work beautifully. So I wanted to be able to run, you know, map B, map C, all that good stuff. So when I ordered through him, I got the ECU stage 2 with the SPS switch, the downpipe he sent along with me, and colder spark plugs. That was another big thing. Apparently this tune will eat the stock spark plugs alive. So I got the colder spark plugs with it. Put those in at the same time that I did the ECU. And after a little while, I wanted to put the downpipe in. So I went to go do the downpipe, and my luck, I had a bolt snap on the turbo housing. So the turbo stud bolt just sheared right off. I used PB Blaster and everything, all the right moves. Wasn't putting a whole lot of force on it. These bolts are pretty small anyways. And it just, boom, like a twig. So I ended up having to drive the car around a little broken for a little while. And then a buddy of mine was like, hey man, I know this shop that can probably take that out for you on the real cheap. So I go there and I pick my car up. I turn it on, and I still got the stock cat back at this point, and no intercooler yet. So the first thing I did was I put it in map B. I'm like, all right, let's go try map B. So I put it in map B, and immediately, I mean, the car is just, oh my God. The turbo response, instant. It just wanted to haul. And that's when the car started chirping in the second gear. Mind you, this is an automatic car. So that automatic transmission, it's not playing around. It may be a traditional, you know, torque converter type automatic, but it does not play around. I have owned a Volkswagen R32 before this car, with the DSG transmission, and that car was full bolt-ons, United Motorsports tune with the spark cut. It was a great car. I loved that car. The only problem I had with that car was because it's so heavy, the all-wheel drive is sucking a lot of power out of it, and electrical issues. So that car wasn't really giving me the satisfaction that I was looking for taking a car to the track, you know, all summer long, basically. I think the fastest time I ran in that car was 14.3 at like 100 miles an hour, and that was it. I could not get the car for the life of me to go any faster. So the only thing left I had to do was turbocharging, and turbocharging an R32, especially a Mark V, is super expensive. I mean, stupid expensive. The kits alone are like $6,000 to $7,000, and that's just to get you the ones that make like 350 wheel horsepower. So 350 wheel horsepower would have been great, because the thing was probably only making maybe 235 to the wheels or so, full bolt-ons. Keep in mind it's all-wheel drive, so you got that succubus drivetrain taking a little power from you. So brake horsepower, that thing was probably around like 290, 295, so about 230 to the wheels or so. The 60-foot times it gave me were 2 seconds, about 2.03, something like that. So not bad, all-wheel drive, great, right? But I was still not happy with my ET, you know, 14.3 at 100 miles an hour, and there was nothing I could do to get it to go faster. So I ended up taking the car into the dealership, trading it in for the Mini Cooper, and when I test drove the Mini Cooper, I knew it was going to be the right move, and I'll tell you why. So I was actually looking around for a Volkswagen GTI. I wanted a Mark 6. I had a Mark 6 in the past, a manual one. Nothing special, just a stage 1 tune, an intake, and a Magnaflow catback, and I loved it. I mean, granted, back then I think I was like 21 years old, or maybe 22, so this was about 6 or 7 years ago at this point, and I loved it. I thought it was the best car I had ever owned. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, don't take this the wrong way, my wife became pregnant. It was a 2-door, it was manual, so it wasn't going to work out for us. We did have her Acura TSX, so when my son was initially born, we dealt with it. So the TSX wasn't that great on rear room for a rear-facing car seat. Mine was actually a little bit better because of the way the seats were designed. So what ended up happening was my wife wanted to stay home with our son and raise him, which is understandable. But I couldn't take on 2 car payments with my level of pay. So we sold her TSX privately because it was the easier sale. And then I took my car in and I traded it in to Toyota. It's a long story. We ended up actually starting out with a Prius C. Yes, it was a clown car. It was way too small. It was a Prius of all things as well. But I figured with the extra expenses I was taking on, saving on gas mileage would probably be a good thing to take on as well. So we dealt with that car for a few months, and we ended up actually taking it back to the dealership again and traded it in for a 2013 Camry that we now have, and we still have. So that's our family car. This is my car to do anything and everything I please with, and she's got the family car, which is the Camry. Now I just got rid of my most favorite vehicle in the world, and I was sad. So what did I do? Well, bought myself a motorcycle. So I went around looking for motorcycles, and after a while I found one. I got it. I drove it for, I think I rode it for like maybe 3 or 4 more months after I got that one, and I almost got killed about 100 times. So I was like, all right, this is enough. I have a kid at home. I can't be out here in Florida on a motorcycle. So what I did was I went to Ford and I traded it in for a Ford Focus, and that was the pinnacle of the most gruesome automotive mistake I have ever made. Do not, I repeat, do not, to anybody out there, buy a brand new 3rd generation Ford Focus with a DCT automatic transmission. They are horrible. I think the recall ended up actually finally coming out, sometime this year about them. They're a horrible car. Jerky transmission, always throwing codes for the transmission. You take it in, they tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Oh, we just did a computer update. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It was ridiculous. So I dealt with that car for a little while. Went to school in Pensacola and traded it in for a Volkswagen TDI. Now, this was, what, July, maybe June of 2015. What happened in October of 2015? Dieselgate. Boom. Volkswagen gets caught for cheating on emissions testing, right? My luck. So when that thing came out, you know, they started throwing people like little $500 cards for dealership credit, $500 Visa card for this, you know, blah, blah, blah. I went into the dealership thinking immediately, I'm like, I gotta get out of this car. This thing's gonna plummet in value by the time they figure all this stuff out. So I went to the dealership, and that's when I started looking for the GTI. Unfortunately, it wasn't gonna happen. So this dealership, and I'm not gonna name them just for their own, you know what, just for me, just for me not feeling bad about it, I guess. They were trying to convince me to voluntarily repossess my car to Volkswagen Credit to get something else. Who the hell in their right mind would voluntarily repossess their car to get a new one? Why? Why would I, you know, that's gonna sit on my credit report for what, 7 years before it drops off? So I'd have to make sure that I'm ready to stick with that car for 7 years. And also on top of that, I'm not buying a house or anything that might pop up in my life, you know? So I walked away from it and I waited. It took an entire extra year, but finally Volkswagen decided to buy back the TDIs, and that's what they did. They bought them back. So I got a little bit of extra money back, and I immediately went out and started looking for a car. And back when I was in, I was going to say in high school, but actually before high school, or after high school, I bought my first car. This was me buying it, not my parents, not anybody else. I went and got a loan and got a 2004 Dodge SRT-4, and this was in 2007. It was a great deal back then. It was like $10,500. Quick car, exactly what I was looking for. And I was thinking to myself after the TDI was gone, I'm like, you know, I loved that car as well, and maybe I can find one nowadays super cheap, and then I have mod money, right? Oh, I got mod money. So I went out, I found one, I picked it up for, I think like $5,800 or so. It had less than 1,000 miles. I think it was at like 90,000 miles when I picked it up. The body in general was okay. It had scratches here and there, but I understood. The transmission was the big thing, because those things have a third gear synchro issue. Was butter smooth. Everything about it was great. The only thing done to it was an intake and a Greddy blow-off valve. So it was basically unmolested. So I bought it, took it home, started modding it. Come to find out, I've grew up a little since then, and it just wasn't my style. After doing like the catalyst downpipe and the exhaust, the tune, all that good stuff that I had done on the previous one, I was just like, you know, what was I thinking back then? Like, this is just it's too childish, too rowdy for me. So I sold that. The owner of it actually works where I work, so I get to see it every day. And that's when I went and bought the R32. Now, I move through cars fast, I'll admit that. It's something that I'm trying to get away from, and I'm hoping that the Mini can do that for me. I think this has really done everything that I wanted in a car for a long time now. So I got the R32. This was actually in February of this year, 2017. And it was already done up. It had all the bolt-ons. It was lowered down on coilovers. It had, at the time, an APR engine tune and a Unitronic DSG tune. They didn't seem to work well together. So what I ended up doing was I went and found on the forums sorry, I had to get out in the traffic. I went on the forums and I found that United Motorsports, this guy named Fred, he is the guru of VR6s. So I immediately found a dealer, went and got flashed, and oh my God, such a difference. The car just ran smoother, it pulled better, the spark cut was amazing. What the spark cut does is it actually, whichever cylinder is about to fire when the car shifts, it shuts the spark off real quick. And what that does is it allows the RPMs to drop a little quicker and get the car into the next gear faster. So the shifts were faster, and when that spark cut hits, it actually pops, you know, because you have that little bit of excess fuel that didn't get ignited in that one cylinder. So on that next spark, it blows all that excess fuel away, right? And you get a short little flame out the back, and it was awesome. But like I said, I already went over. I couldn't get the car to go as fast as I wanted, so I was kind of done with it. So I went to the dealership to look around for cars after getting pre-approved for a loan, and I went to Bridgewater Acura, about an hour north of me, and I was looking for the GTI. I actually chased around like 3 other GTIs that either ended up selling before I got there, or they just turned into a raw deal, like kind of one of those bait and switch type things. Like you show up and they're like, oh yeah, that's the internet price, or blah blah blah, you know, stupid stuff like that the dealerships do. I hate dealerships. That's why the past 2 cars, the SRT-4 and the R32, I actually bought private. So I went to the dealership because I was going to have to deal with a little bit of negative equity, so I was looking at a down payment and other stuff to sort out. So I went to Bridgewater Acura. They had a GTI. I wanted to look at it. Oh, they also had a Honda Civic I wanted to look at. So we get there, we test drive the Honda Civic. It was a 2009 Honda Civic Si, and the lack of torque was killing me. I mean, I love turbo cars. I love the low-end torque from such a small baby turbo spooling up. And also the VR6, I mean, it's a V6. You can't really compare a 4-cylinder VTEC motor to a V6. The torque is just indistinguishable. So the low-end torque really turned me away from the car. My plans were that I wanted to get it, go full bolt-ons, K-tune, all that good stuff, and, you know, try something different, but it just wasn't for me. So after thinking that I was going to walk away from this dealership with nothing, I asked the guy to turn his computer screen to me and show me every car within said price range on the computer screen, and I would see if there's something that piques my interest. So I'm looking at the computer screen and I see a bunch of different options. You know, there's the Civic that I already looked at. There's like a Volkswagen Beetle Turbo. There's a couple like Acura TSXs, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, eh. And then I see the Mini Cooper, the one that I'm driving right now. And I said, well, you know, Mini Coopers, they've always looked kind of good, you know. Italian job, everybody knows that. So I said, you know, let me take a look at it. So it was 2014. It had 52,000 miles on it. 1-owner vehicle, no accidents, clean history, and freshly serviced. When I got this from the dealership, they actually wouldn't move on the price because they had just put brand new rotors, brand new brakes, a brand new water pump, serpentine belt, all that good stuff. They just put a bunch of work into it for the maintenance that it needed. So I couldn't fight on the price a whole lot, so I fought on my trade. And they gave me the trade offer with the issues I was having with that R32 as well. The AC wasn't working, the airbag light kept coming on. They gave me a great deal, a killer deal that I was not going to walk away from. So I test drove the Mini and I immediately fell in love with it. And the reason that I fell in love with it is because when they say that these things drive like go-karts, they mean it. I mean, I took it around a couple little curves, and the car just stays so flat. It's ridiculous how flat these cars stay in the corner on stock suspension. And, I mean, this has the Sport package, but it's stock suspension. So I started looking around the forums real quick, found out that it's pretty supported for aftermarket parts. So I just took it. And that was it. That's the reason right now that I own this R55. And honestly, I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. So I went ahead and flipped you guys around because it's getting pretty dark and you can't really see me anyways, but So I'm going to be bringing you more content about the R55, some other cars in my local group that I mentioned before. We have a Facebook group. We got about 250 plus members now. Multiverse of cars. I mean, almost anything you can think of. So, oh, there we go. Come on, get out of the way. Couple of deer. So, I'm going to be bringing you guys some more content. I know the winter time's coming, so it's probably not going to be a whole lot of stuff. But bear with me, I will do the best that I can. So one of the next things that I actually want to do is a walk around video. I haven't really shown you guys the exterior of this car, the mods, stuff like that. So I want to do a walk around, and I also want to do a comparison video of all 3 maps of the Manic Tune as well. We'll hit the stock one as well, from the stock boost levels, which are like 13 pounds, all the way up to map C, which is what I run daily, because why would you want less power anyways? Map C is about 22 pounds, and I'm telling you, this car rips. I mean, it's lightweight, 2,700 pounds. With me in it, it's probably closer to 3,000. And also gas. So, I mean, this thing, it just moves. Right now, I'm running, you know, my fastest is 13.5 in the quarter mile at 102 miles an hour or so. So, I mean, it's a Mini Cooper, and right now I'm only making maybe, what, 220 wheel horsepower. So on that note, the car wash should be coming up here soon. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I appreciate everybody in the past couple of days that have hit that subscribe button, left a comment, or left a like. If you're new to this channel, go ahead, do it for the boys. Hit that subscribe button for me, and I will see you guys in my next